sorry, all power to the people must mean all power to all people, everywhere.
All right, so fight for your lives before it's someone else's job.
This digital portrait, titled "That Little Girl Was Me," depicts Vice President-elect Kamala Harris walking alongside the shadow of young Ruby Bridges, who was the first student to integrate into the all-white elementary school in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1960. At the age of 6, Ruby had to be escorted into her elementary school with 4 deputy marshals for her safety. In this image, Kamala Harris symbolizes the continuation of Bridges' bravery and the representation of women of color all across the nation.
A river is a fighting place between 2 sides: those who abuse it, those who cannot live without it, and those who blame the second for the destruction of the first. When exercising fishing rights becomes civil disobedience, and when old trees are presented as inconsequential artifacts, survival, in a word that assumes your erasure, is radical.
This mural portrays a seemingly endless list of Black lives lost as a background on the sidewalk of what appears to be Times Square. The idea of being walked on relates to the negligence that has been given to the BLM movement and racial justice throughout history, as well as the unacknowledged slave labor that went into the intercity railway transit system that led to Times Square's success.
We demand change in order to live our lives. Instead, we are force-fed lies and told to become happier and to laugh, when in reality, these things make us just go, because nothing really changes. For the fortunate, no change is okay, but for the rest, when something affects a loved one, that is when they really have to stand up and say that we demand change.
Sorry. Hold on. I can't really speak right now. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
The chat says, remember Stonewall was a riot. Never forget our roots.
The phrase "I can't breathe" has been uttered for far too long and far too often, yet we continue to pollute, brutalize, and deny care to communities of color. How do we expect Black Americans to thrive in a society where they do not have the right to breathe?
As a society who preaches about protecting those who need protection, the amount of discrimination against and general lack of care for female and male BIPOC victims of sexual assault is astounding and enraging. To neglect the voices of these people is to support the idea that only the non-colored members of society deserve the basic human right to say no.
Even if the world is broken and society puts you down, keep your head up with your heart and hands wide open.
Cheap clothes made by underpaid workers who earn $4 an hour, now available everywhere you turn.
New York City says Black Lives Matter, but New York City spends $10 billion on their police department every year.
We as individuals who as a community have chosen to settle for political representatives who do not represent, but rather preach centricism and inaction must collaborate together while maintaining our individual thought in order to elect candidates whom we believe in. When individuals choose to settle for representatives they do not feel is right, that influences the collective to do the same, leaving too many dissatisfied and misrepresented.
Defund the police is the rallying cry echoed around the world. It calls into question the police system, demanding the abolishment of a system that has awarded the highest percentages of annual budgets, and one that has profited from the inhuman treatment of Black, Indigenous people of color.
Underlying nuances around one's sexuality lie ingrained everywhere within society. Societal stigma creates a negative connotation about one's coming out stories and the negative emotions traditionally associated with a non-heteronormative sexuality. Together, we can break that stigma.
It's one thing to acknowledge the racial injustice within our society, but it's another thing to take action. Somebody once said, we live in a world in which we must share responsibility. It's easy to say, not my child, not my community, not my world, not my problem. Then there are those who see the need and respond. We need more people like this.
During a global pandemic, various firms have pushed for reopening knowing the consequences. COVID-19 disproportionately harms low-income BIPOC. While many white people advocate for the lives of BIPOC, they are quick to push for the reopening of non-essential businesses. I see my peers advocate for Black lives on their social media platforms, then openly go to a party. I see my college pride itself on social justice while pushing to reopen campus, knowing that there will be a great impact on the surrounding community.
In our dual America, the right to be served means two different things. In one America, the right to be served means the right to convenience, to luxury, to consumption. To the other, the right to be served means the right to protection, to justice, to life.
Hate is detrimental to all those involved with it. Both the person feeling hate and the one receiving hate are worse off in the end. Any satisfaction is short-lived, as by being hateful, your life will be infected, as free time will be spent thinking about hate. This does not dissipate the negative emotion, it only compounds them, letting the hate fester in your mind.
$20,600,000. 2 zeros separate how much is given to the National World War II Museum versus the homeless shelter a mere block away. We demand that our citizens use their resources not to let some attraction stand by and indulge in surplus, but to support our own who cannot even get by. We as New Orleanians must not privilege entertainment, ours or others, over our people's collective well-being.
We stand in protest of unjust, cruel treatment in a system that has repetitively failed on a consistent basis. With the sound of shattering glass and pounding footsteps drowned out our messages written on walls and what we yell in the streets.